Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. But this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to head back to a brewery that I've been very impressed with in the past. This is going to be review number 3 involving these guys. We're going to go up the west coast once again, not to Gothenburg this time for once. We're going to go a little bit further north than that to a wee place called Strömstad, which is a very small, picturesque fishing town from what I gather, quite close to the Norwegian border. And of course this town is home to a brewery called Fermenterarna. So these guys, if you translate it into English, their name is literally the fermenters. This beer is called the BerryLicorice. It comes in at 4.5% ABV. It's a Gose and it's brewed with maple syrup, blueberry, raspberry and blackcurrant, along with some anise, star aniseed, licorice root and salt. So yeah, it should be a really interesting one. This beer was released as part of the local Osmoskoligt assortment for July of 2020. And yeah, I think this cost me like 20 or 30 crowns or something like this. So the last beer I had from these guys was the Miss Mapleicious, and that turned out to be very nice. But I've been having quite a few berry sours recently. I really do enjoy a berry sour. You'll know that if you've watched the channel before. Berry Berliner Weisses, berry Goses and things like this. But I've had some nice beers that have had this kind of licorice base to them recently, and they have been very nice as well actually. So I'm really curious to see how this one turns out, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. Yeah, always cool to return to Fermenterarna as well. I keep an eye on these guys in the local list, so maybe you'll see something next month or the month after again here on the channel. But yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Fermenterarna before. No doubt there will be a few more at some point in the near future, but this is review number 3 as I said. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, just to tell you a little bit about Fermenterarna then, on to the brewery notes. So Fermenterarna, as I've told you before, were founded by Niklas Aronsson and Anna Claesson, who founded the company together back in 2018. So they are still a very new brewery. And the brewery itself can be found in Strömstad in Västra Götaland, very close to the Norwegian border, as I mentioned as well, a bit further north than Gothenburg, the Swedish beer capital. Got to say that in these videos, you know. But apparently Niklas ordered a beer in a bar one day without really knowing what it was. And this turned out to be the Tropic Thunder from Gose Brewery, which is one of the kind of, I guess you could say, iconic sour beers of Sweden, if you like. You know, this is one of the ones that really set the whole sour beer thing in motion in Sweden. A very well respected beer that. But on the other hand, Anna has had an interest in things that ferment for a very long time, and she runs the restaurant Kostas Trädgårdar, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, basically the you know, the tree gardens, if you like. But she's fermented various things such as sauerkraut and other stuff in the past. But this brewery started out with a very small 200-litre brew kit and some tanks, and in late 2018 they took a break to expand the company after their beers were received very well at different festivals. So they now boast a new facility with 2 500-litre brew kits and a total tank capacity of 17,000 litres, and they've been aiming to brew 50,000 litres of beer over the course of 2019. But they have the equipment to brew around 250,000 litres of beer per year. I don't know whether they've met those targets at the moment. I couldn't find out using the likes of beernews.se and things like that, but they have been scaling. They are sort of going through a programme of gradually scaling up. But according to Untappd, these guys have produced around 85 different types of beer as of July 2020 when I'm filming this review for you. As I said to you earlier, most of the beers that you'll find from these guys are sour beers like Berliner Weisses and Goses and things, but I think they have a few sort of almost like Florida type IPAs and New England IPAs and stuff like this as well. So yeah, they're an interesting brewery, this one, and they are fairly prolific. They do seem to put out maybe, you know, 1 or 2 beers with every lot in the local Osmoskoligt in Systembolaget. It's really great that since they've opened it up a little bit and given the Swedish breweries easier access to the market here. Actually, we're getting a lot more interesting beers from our very, very local breweries. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Fermenterarna for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, of course, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on with this one then and see how we go. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork before we open it up. You know, it's pretty much kind of what you would expect. You can see the sort of diamond shapes, which obviously are the licorice. As I've told you many a time in my Swedish reviews, you know, the Swedes absolutely love licorice, and it's, you know, I never liked it before I came over here, and it really has grown on me over the last couple of years, to be honest with you. I do quite like a little bit of licorice now. I don't really go out of my way to buy it, but you know, I don't turn my nose up at it either, I have to say. But the licorice chocolate stuff, no, definitely not. Really don't like that. But yeah, there you can see BerryLicorice, and this little kind of bottle here, this is the Fermenterarna kind of thing there, which is quite nice. So yeah, this one I think should be really cool. As I said to you, a 4.5% Gose. This one has maple syrup, blueberry, raspberry, blackcurrant and anise, star anise, licorice root, and some salt in it. So yeah, should be pretty cool. Without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious. Oh, there we go, a little bit active on the opening there. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting. Tell you something, when you open this beer up, you can smell those lovely berries coming out of it already. Yeah, there we go. There we are. There we are. So yes, nicely presented, this one. Nicely presented. So yeah, the colour of this is kind of what you'd expect. A lovely sort of maroon kind of colour. It reminds me a little bit of the Heart of Midlothian football shirt. It's quite weird. I was walking through Lund the other day and saw a guy who was quite obviously Swedish wearing a Hearts football shirt, so that was a bit of an unusual experience. I nearly stopped him and spoke to him about it, but I was like, nah, that'll make him feel very awkward. But yeah, this one, as I say, a lovely kind of bright maroony type colour. If I shine the light through it, you can see it is very, very hazy, this one, which is, you know, you kind of expect that from a Gose, especially when it's got so many fruits and things like that added to it. You can see when we poured this beer, it had just under a finger of a quite frothy, very pink, foamy coloured head there. That's fading away now to just be a very thin, foamy layer, and it's just dissipating almost completely. But the beer is pretty damn hazy. If I put my fingers behind the glass there, you are not going to see any transparency to this one at all. But yeah, this is kind of what you would expect from one of these kind of modern fruited Goses. They're going to give you some crazy colours. Usually there's something like this, maroon. Sometimes they can be a little bit more kind of blackberry in their sort of colours. I think sometimes they can be a little bit more blueberry-like in their colours as well, and you get a lot of bright ones if it's passion fruit or oranges or whatever that are added into them as well. But yeah, very, very nice looking beer, this one. Not overly surprising in terms of its appearance. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma on this one then and see how we go. Oh, you can smell the aniseed, you can smell that sort of licoricey aniseed sort of thing underneath this one. It smells very, very candied. Yeah, the Swedes would die for this beer, you know, they really would. I can see why, you know, as I say, Swedes have got this thing with licorice. I didn't realise that really before I came over here, but they absolutely love it. And this thing just smells pretty much like licorice. The licorice is very overpowering in that aroma. You get very little else out of it on first impression. You have to actually, yeah, you really, when it's got star aniseed, anise, and you know, is it licorice root? It's got 3 different types of this stuff in it. You know, that's going to dominate the aroma. You really get that. There's a wee bit of saltiness to it, in fairness, but yeah, there is a wee bit of saltiness to this one. But other than that, you know, yeah, other than that, there's not too much to report on the aroma, to be quite honest with you. If you sugar it up a little bit, you'll get a few of the kind of berry notes out of it. You can pick out a wee bit of the raspberry, a bit of the kind of tartar raspberries in there, a wee bit of the tartness from the blueberries as well, but you also get some of the juiciness from the blackberries. The black currants, sorry, it's black currants that are in this, not blackberries. So yeah, the more and more you smell of it, and the more that your nose adjusts to it, it does start to get a little bit more blackberry, I keep saying blackberries, more black curranty. You do start to get a little bit of that, and a few sort of juicy figgy notes out of it, but you also get some, yeah, you do also get some of the lovely, you get a few kind of little bits of tartness out of it, but mainly it's that kind of smooth licoricey sort of thing there. It smells very oily and very licoricey. There's not much else you can actually say about this one in terms of the aroma. The licorice and the licorice root, the aniseed, this whole sort of thing just sort of clubs together, and it's the thing that just jumps out of the beer at you. A little bit of tartness from the raspberries, as I said, and from the blueberries as well. But mainly to me, is that in terms of the way the fruit comes out, I'd say it's more black curranty. You can pick up a wee bit of the saltiness. There's maybe a little hint of a grassiness to this beer, but other than that, there really, you know, there really is not very much to report in terms of the. There really isn't very much to report in terms of the. Really not much to report in terms of the aroma, to be quite honest with you. I'd say this one, hopefully, it's a wee bit more complex in terms of its flavour, but knowing this brewery, I think they will have produced something that's pretty nice, so we'll see. This one, as I say, some of these sour beers, they tend to be very straight shooters in their aroma. Berry licorice, a little bit of berry, mainly licorice in my mind. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then. So the berry licorice, 4.5% Gose, with a bit of maple syrup, some blueberry, raspberry and blackcurrant, with anise, star anise, licorice root and salt in this one. So yeah, let's see how we go then. Let's have a taste of this one. Sláinte, skål. Ooh, good bit of tartness on the beginning. But yeah, very. First impression is that it's very licoricey, but also very tart at the same time, which, you know, stating the obvious here, just go by the name of this beer. Thing with a sour beer is you can never judge it on the first sip. You need a couple just to let your mouth adjust to it. And I would say, yeah, definitely, it is a bit more complex in terms of the flavour than it is in terms of the aroma, but the licorice does play a huge role in this one, but it's a lot more balanced in the flavour, definitely. It's definitely more balanced between that berry side of things and the licoricey side of things. It's quite interesting, the mouthfeel. This is very unusual. I've often found, my mum used to like licorice, and I always found that licorice gave you this, I always felt that it sort of dried out my tongue a little bit, which is kind of unusual, and I find that this beer does that same thing. It's maybe just the strength. I don't know if you can see the pungency or the strength of the licorice, and I find that really curious about this one. This is quite quirky for me. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, let's try and break this one down a wee bit then. So yeah, underneath, you know, the base of the beer, you can feel a little bit of a pale malty, slightly almost wheaty, white bready sort of thing. That forms the backbone of the beer. But on top of that, it really feels very oily. The middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate, they feel very oily, and that's the aniseed, the star anise, the licorice root. It's all of these kind of things. They just sort of all group together a little bit, and they sort of, you know, that really is forming the backbone of your beer. So there's not really much more to the centre of your palate than that sort of pale malty sort of thing, then that big oily licoricey aniseed type thing sitting on top of it. Maybe in the very middle of your tongue you've got a wee bit of a kind of Werther's Originally type quality there. So yeah, this is a kind of quite quirky one, I would have to say. Yeah, it's nice. I like this beer. I do like this one. Do I like it as much as maybe some of the previous ones I've had from Fermenterarna? Maybe not. I think the Miss Maplelicious, I like that. That one was one that it just really kind of stuck with me actually, and that was the main reason I bought this one. I think these guys did release a few others. I'm sure that these guys released one that was to do with a Kveik yeast, but I bought this one because I've been enjoying. I've had some really interesting sort of licorice based sours recently, and that was the reason I went for this one. And this one for me, I like it, but this one, it leans a little bit more towards the sharp end of the sour spectrum, and I'm not sure about that. I think when it comes to the licorice sours, personally I prefer them to be a little bit more juicy, almost. So I do like them to be a little bit more kind of juicy and oily and fruity, if that makes sense, whereas the oiliness you get out of this one is all about the licorice. I'm not sure if using the 3 types of aniseed, licorice, all these kind of things, maybe that's just, it just kind of overpowers a beer. Maybe there's a sort of golden ratio or something like that between the fruits and the licorice side of things, and this one to me feels as if it really leans towards that licorice end rather than being a bit more balanced. But yeah, it is a solid beer. Some people will like that. As I say, it's just, beer is always subjective. Different people like different things. And the thing with Fermenterarna is you're always going to get a good beer from these guys. But this is definitely one for people that like the beer that, you know, that leans more towards the licorice. When it comes to these, I personally prefer them to be a little bit more sort of balanced, if that makes sense. But the fruits in this one are a little bit tartar, and maybe they're a bit more tart maybe rather than being fruity. And it might be, maybe some of the other ones that I've had, they've added a bit of flavour essence as well as putting in the actual fruit. This one might just be, I've got a feeling that this one maybe is just pure fruit. Maybe you need just a little touch of flavour essence to kind of match the sort of kind of candied nature, if you like, of the licorice in the middle of the palate. So that's an interesting point about this. We use these beers as a kind of part of the learning curve, but it's nice. It is nice enough, this one. I'd be curious to try it on tap and see if it comes across any differently, but be aware with it, in my mind, this one really is quite strong in terms of the licorice character compared to some of the other ones that I've had. And in fairness, I would say that the more you drink of it, the more it does kind of, but it does even out a little bit more. So, you know, maybe as you drink this one, and maybe as it warms up a little bit, it starts to just balance out a wee bit more. But yeah, the middle of your palate, as I say, very oily, aniseed, licorice, all of these kind of things. On the edge of your palate then, in the back corners of the palate, you may get a tiny little bit of earthiness out of this one. There's maybe a teeny little bit of floral quality on the front corners of the palate, and it is just a little bit grassy around the front edge of the tongue. But for me, this one, I was thinking that it doesn't really taste as if it has hops in it, and there's no hops listed on the can there, so this will be one of these ones where they haven't added any hops to it. So yeah, some breweries like to add a little bit of hops in it, a little bit of, you know, Hallertau or Tintnanger or something. Some breweries don't bother. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer, as I say, is quite interesting. When you first take this beer in, you can feel the tartness and sharpness both from the raspberries and from the blueberries. I would say it leans a little bit more towards the raspberry side of things, but yeah, you get a good bit of that kind of raspberry bit to it. Behind the very kind of front curve of the tongue, it's got a lovely sort of sharpness to it actually. So I do like that about it. I do like a nice kind of tart raspberry. I've always said that the raspberries and stuff you get here in the Nordic countries aren't quite as sharp as the ones we get back home in Scotland, but I think this one, the raspberries in this are fairly tart, I would say. But yeah, on the front third of your palate then, it kind of juices out a little bit. You get some nice kind of juicy raspberry elements out of it. You get some nice, you do get some really nice, what do you call it, you get some very nice, kind of more, you get a bit of the kind of blueberry tartness as well. I find that the tartness from the blueberries is a bit darker, to be honest with you, and the black currants, I think, they come out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste with this one. So you get the blueberry and raspberry tartness sitting at the front of the tongue, but then just behind that you'll start to get a kind of oily, figgy type flavour that develops out of this one, a sort of candied, almost a little bit like candied and strawberry-like if you want. But then yeah, you've got some really juicy, you do have some very, very juicy black curranty notes coming out of this one. The black curranty blackberry flavours come out of the front of this one. So that's kind of an interesting point about this one. Like I say, I do suspect from the way that the fruit's coming out in this, because it is around the edge of the palate, I do suspect that they've added all these berries into it, but they haven't, you know, from the way it comes across, I don't think there's flavour essence in this one. And I think to some degree, if you are going to put a little bit of if you are going to put this much licorice into the beer, I think just to kind of even out a little bit, pardon me, you do have to have, you know, you do have to have a little bit of, maybe a little touch of like berry flavour essence or something like that in here, just to sort of match the oiliness that you're getting from everything else in this beer. So yeah, this is a really quirky one, I think. I do like this beer, but is it the best one I've had from Fermenterarna? Not quite sure on that. I think I preferred the Miss Maplicious. That was a really good one. But this is pretty solid. Just be aware of it. The licorice in this one really takes the fore, to be honest with you. The licorice in this really starts to dominate. But yeah, this one, yeah, this is pretty. It is pretty nice actually. It says on the side of the can here, best before the 25th of May, 2022. So I do like how this one, how everything kind of goes together in this. This one is really pretty damn solid in my mind. But as I say, it is really leaning towards that licorice side of things. The thing that you really get into the aftertaste is the big oily licoricey, and there is a wee touch of that kind of Werther's original oily flavour in the middle of the palate there too. The licorice almost comes off the tongue a little bit. It's almost got the same kind of vibe to it as you might get from, like, you know, the same sort of freshness you almost get from toothpaste. It's almost just got a little bit of that to it, this beer. So this is a really quirky one. Have a go at it for yourself and just see what you think. But I think, you know, my tip for this one would be just put a little bit of a kind of berry flavour essence in this and make the fruits just a little bit sweeter to some degree as well, because it leans, you know, a little bit more towards the tarty side of things on the fruit, and it comes across as just a little touch unbalanced in my mind. But yeah, so another solid enough beer from Fermenterarna, definitely. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I'd say that this beer is actually quite full-bodied. It's one of the kind of thicker sour beers I've come across recently. The carbonation is very, very smooth. The mouthfeel overall is pretty damn oily. In terms of the IBUs and stuff, yeah, I think this one maybe, it might well be a 0 IBU beer. It's probably, you know, it'll be less than 5 IBUs. You'll get 5 IBUs out of this beer if you're lucky, to be honest with you. But yeah, malt base in this one, there's a bit of smoothness to it, lovely big oily note, slightly sweet. Good bit of sharp tartness to the beer as well, and some nice kind of juicy fruity qualities. And I think that is, you know, that one, it comes across really nicely in that way. I think that if you like licorice and you like the big oily quality of licorice, you are going to really enjoy this one. As I've said a couple of times, I think personally I like these licorice sours just to be a bit more balanced. I think you need the fruits to just be a little bit sweeter, a little touch sweeter to kind of match the licorice, especially if you're using kind of 3 assortments of these licoricey flavours as they are in this one. But yeah, I like how this goes together. It does get a thumbs up for me. As I say, not my favourite beer I think that I've had from Fermenterarna, and I think, yeah, quite a strong licorice quality from this one. But when it's called BerryLicorice, you know, it is that does make sense, to be honest with you. So yeah, an interesting one. I would consider this one part of my kind of beer learning curve, if you like. This has been an interesting one to review, so I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this beer as well. Let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the BerryLicious 4.5% Gose with blueberry, raspberry, blackcurrant, aniseed, star aniseed, licorice root and salt. 4.5% from Fermenterarna in Strömstad, a wee bit to the north of Gothenburg, very close to the Norwegian border. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Fermenterarna. We will return to these guys at some point in the near future, and I will catch you guys very, very soon. Thanks again for watching. Check out my social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this in the comment section below. Your favourite beers from Fermenterarna. And do give me some other licorice sour recommendations as well. This is a style that is, or a sub-style I guess you could say, that is growing on me a little bit. But yeah, until the next time, Slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, Skull, see you very soon. Cheers.